Muzzle down, little miss. That thing kicks harder than you do." The girl's arm shook, but she didn't lower the rifle. Her eyes were too big for her face. Iris' a sharp gray that reminded him of river stone. Somebody had cut her hair with a knife, leaving uneven tufts that stuck out above her ears. Her dress might have been blue once, but dust and sweat had turned it the color of old dishwater. "Don't come closer," she said. Her voice rasped like it had been used up on screaming and crying, and only scraps were left. "Ma's sleeping." Colter's gaze flicked to the woman again. "How long's she been sleeping?" he asked. The girl's mouth tightened. "Since yesterday," she said. "Maybe. She's resting." The lie scraped along his ears. He could feel it, the same way he could feel when a storm was about to roll in, not because of clouds, but because the cattle went quiet and the air went strange. He didn't say she was wrong. Didn't tell her the gray in her mother's face meant there was no waking. He swung his leg over and slid from the saddle, boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. His bay gelding roan flicked an ear but stayed put. Colter had broken him himself. The horse knew better than to move when there was a gun pointed at his rider. "I said don't come closer," the girl repeated, louder now, the muzzle wobbling. "You said that," Colter agreed. "I heard you clear. I ain't here to hurt you. I was riding fence on the north line and saw the smoke from your cook stove. Figured I'd come say howdy. That's all." There was no smoke now. The stove behind her was cold iron. The little sod house half collapsed on one side where the dirt roof had slumped. A kettle lay overturned near the doorway, ants marching in a black ribbon through the spilled flour beside it. "We don't need help," the girl said. He took another slow step closer. Her bony finger tightened on the trigger, and for a heartbeat he saw the path of the bullet, saw it catching him in the chest, the impact throwing him back into Roan's legs. Would be a stupid way to die, he thought. After cattle drives and stampedes and a winter on the trail that had taken frostbite to 3 of his toes, killed his younger brother, and half a dozen good men shot dead by a starving child who didn't know enough to brace her feet. "You holding that rifle for her sake, or yours?" he asked. The question seemed to knock something sideways behind those stone-gray eyes. Her gaze flicked down quick to the woman's still face before jerking back up to him. "Both," she whispered. "What's your name?" Colter asked. "Lark," she said after a long pause, as if she'd thought about lying and decided it wasn't worth the trouble. "I'm Colter Hayes. Got a spread about 5 miles south of here. Hayes Ridge." He tipped his hat toward her, as if they were meeting on a church porch instead of beside a body. "You got water? Food?" Her chin jumped, almost proudly. "Got beans. And flour. You been eating it?" Silence. Her arms trembled again. The rifle's barrel dipped, then jerked back up. "Put the gun down, Lark," he said, softer now. "Let me take a look at your ma. That's all I'm asking." A fly crawled across the dead woman's lower lip. Lark blinked hard, fight flickering across her face like a lantern flame hit by a gust of wind. Colter Hayes stopped his horse when he saw the girl aiming a rifle at him. She stood ankle-deep in trampled dirt beside a still body, bare toes braced wide, chin lifted like she weighed more than 50 pounds, and the world rested on her narrow shoulders. The rifle was too long for her arms, the wood worn smooth in places by hands that had known hard work, not play. The woman at her feet lay on her back, skirt torn, hair spread out over the ground, like someone had tried to neaten it and then lost the will. Flies drifted in a dark cloud over the woman's mouth, but the girl held the rifle like she could still scare death away. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you." Colter lifted both hands from the reins, fingers spread. "Easy now," he said, voice low, the same tone he used with skittish colts and drunk cowhands. She told me to guard her, Lark said. Said don't let nobody touch her till she woke up. Something thick lodged behind Colter's breastbone. He'd heard last words that weren't true before. Men promising they'd get back up, ride one more stretch, make it home to wives and children they would never see again. Reckon she meant all the bad folks, he said. I don't look bad, do I? She studied him. His shirt was sweat dark along the collar and under the arms. He'd left at first light to ride fence and hadn't expected company. His hat brim was cracked on one side, where a steer's horn had clipped it last fall. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. He figured he looked exactly like the kind of man her ma would have warned her about. You got a gun, she said. Sure do. He kept his hands well away from it. Out here, everybody does. Her arms gave up a little more. The muzzle dropped an inch. She's cold, Lark said suddenly. The words burst out of her like she'd been holding them in, and they finally broken loose. Her hands are cold. I tried to put the blanket on her and rub on them, but they stayed cold. Colter took one more step. The rifle's barrel slipped lower. Another. Now he was close enough to see the bruised crescents beneath the girl's eyes, the salt tracks along the dirt on her cheeks. He moved slow as molasses, a man approaching a rattler, and wrapped his palm gently around the rifle's barrel. Let me, he murmured. For a heartbeat she fought him, thin arms jerking, but there was no strength left. She let him ease the gun from her hands. When he had it, he broke the action, checked the chamber, and set it just out of her reach. Lark dropped to her knees beside her mother. She pressed both hands to the woman's arm, like she still might coax warmth back into it. Ma, she whispered. Ma, wake up now. Colter crouched on the opposite side. Up close, there was no question. The slack jaw, the film over the half-open eyes, the faint, sweet sick smell that clung beneath the dust and sweat. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Lark's shoulders seized. Don't say that, she hissed. Don't, she's gone, Lark. The girl shook her head so hard, her hacked hair flopped against her cheeks. You don't know that. You just got here. He did know. But he remembered how it felt when the world first cracked, when the thing you loved most turned into something that would never answer you again. When his younger brother Owen had gone still on the trail, eyes staring up at the stars like they held the answer to why his lungs wouldn't he pull in one more breath. Nothing anyone said had helped then. All right, he said instead. How about this? I'll help you keep watch. Just for a bit. Suspicion flickered across her face, sharp as a knife. Why? Because I can't leave you here to starve, he thought. Because if I ride away now and later, here they found you stiff beside her, I'll see your face every time I close my eyes. Because it looks like you've been at it a while, he said aloud. Even the toughest guard needs a partner. Her throat bobbed. Ma said we don't take charity. It ain't charity. It's neighbors helping neighbors. He didn't know if they were neighbors. This soddy was on the far edge of the county, settled on land most men had judged too lonely and too dry to bother with. He imagined a man once, a husband, maybe, who'd thought otherwise. Then he looked around and didn't see any sign of him. Where's your pa? He asked. Lark's mouth closed hard. Working, she muttered. He's busy. There were no boots by the door, except Lark's little scuffed pair. No extra hat hung on the peg. Inside the crooked doorway, he could see the shadow of a single narrow pallet. Busy, Colter thought. Or gone. He let the question drop. You eaten today? He asked. I'm not hungry. Her stomach answered with a long, hollow growl that made his chest tighten. Got a little jerky in my saddlebag, he said. I'd be obliged if you'd help me eat it. Hate to waste good meat. She hesitated. The wind? No, not the wind. He corrected himself silently. The restless air that always moved over the open land tugged at the hem of her dress. Finally, she nodded once. He stepped back to Roan, brought the saddlebag over, and took out the wrapped strips. He tore one in half, handed her the bigger piece. She didn't say thank you, but she took it and chewed like it hurt. They ate in silence, the only sounds the faint buzz of flies and the distant lowing of cattle from somewhere far off. When she finished, she wiped her mouth on the back of her hand and looked back down at her mother. For who? She shrugged, eyes going far away. Ma said he'd come when he could. Whoever he was, he hadn't come in time. Colter stepped back outside. Roan tossed his head, sensing the shift in his rider's mood. He could leave, he told himself. He'd done what any decent man would do, gave the dead woman a proper burial, fed the girl. He could ride back to Hayes Ridge, tell Nettie there'd been a hard scene out on the North Line. Let the preacher or the sheriff know next time he went to town. Somebody else would deal with Lark, the county, the church. He had cattle, land, ghosts of his own. He didn't need to go collecting more. He looked at Lark. She was 10, maybe 11, hard to tell. Her bones stuck out sharp against her skin. Her eyes were too old for her face and too tired for any age. He pictured her alone here tonight, in that sagging soddy with the dirt floor and the empty pallet, coyotes singing out on the flats, the fresh-turned mound of her mother's grave a few yards from the door. The rope around his chest cinched tighter. "Pack anything you want to keep," he said. Lark stiffened. "We're not leaving." "Yes, we are." Ma said, "Your ma ain't here to argue," he said, harsher than he meant to. She flinched. He swore under his breath, rubbed a hand over his face. "Listen," he said, softer. "Your ma told you to guard her. You did. You did right by her. But she's in the ground now, and you're not. You staying here alone doesn't help her none. It just gets you hurt, or worse." Her jaw trembled. "Where would we go?" "I got room at my place." Her eyes widened. "I don't know you." Fair point, he thought grimly. "Name's Colter Hayes," he said again. "You know the ridge? Got the long canyon that runs down toward Copper Bend?" She hesitated and nodded once. "Ma pointed it out one time. Said big ranchers live there." "Big enough," he said. "Plenty of food. Roof doesn't leak near as bad as this one. Got an old woman named Meddy who will fuss over you till you ready to bite her ankle." "I don't bite," Lark muttered. "Good. She's fond of her ankles." A ghost of something like a smile touched her mouth and vanished. "I gotta stay," she whispered. "Why?" She looked at the grave. "What if he comes back and we're gone?" she asked. "What if he came to take us home and we're not here? He, the absent man, the father, maybe. The one who'd left them out here with a promise and not much else." "If he cared enough to come back," Colter said slowly, "he'd care enough to ask around. Folks know this place. They'll tell him where you went." He paused. "And if he don't, then you staying won't change that." Lark wrapped her arms around her thin chest. "Ma said not to trust men who say they know better." He almost laughed. It came out as a rough exhale. "She sounds like a wise woman." "She was," Lark said fiercely. He nodded. "Well, I ain't asking you to trust me forever all at once. Just asking you to trust me long enough to get you fed and safe. After that, you can make up your own mind about me." She stared at him. The sun beat down on the top of his hat, his shirt sticking to his back. Sweat trickled down his spine. He didn't move. Finally, Lark turned and darted inside. He heard the scrape of wood, the rustle of cloth. When she reappeared, she carried a small tin box, a folded shawl, and the ribbon from her wrist. She shoved them all into a burlap sack and slung it over her narrow shoulder. "That's it?" he asked quietly. "That's all that matters," she said. He nodded once. "All right, then." He helped her mount up, setting her in the saddle in front of him. She perched stiffly, fingers digging into the horn. "You ever ride before?" he asked. "Ma let me sit on the mule sometimes," she said. "This is gentler than a mule," he said. "Roan's got more sense, too." Roan snorted as if disagreeing. Colter clucked his tongue, turned the horse, and they started south. Lark twisted in the saddle to keep the little sod house in sight as long as she could. Her eyes stayed on the grave mound, on the crooked chimney, on the door hanging just slightly off its leather hinge. "Say goodbye," Colter murmured. "You say it," she whispered. "I already did." He lifted a hand, fingers brushing the brim of his hat, and tipped it toward the sagging house and the grave beneath the cottonwood. "Rest easy, Hannah May Riley," he said under his breath. "I'll look after your girl." He felt Lark's back heave once, like the words cracked something inside her. Then she faced forward again, shin high, eyes on the line of the land. Hayes Ridge rose out of the rolling plains like the bones of some ancient animal, long and low and familiar. The main house sat tucked against the shelter of the ridge, its whitewashed boards stubborn against time and wind. Corrals spread out behind it, rails mended and remended by his own hands, and those of the men who'd come and gone. As they rode up, a woman stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. Nettie Ward had been with Colter since before his father died, through cattle drives and bad winters and the slow, painful expansion of Hayes Ridge from a lean-to and a dream into something solid. Now she shaded her eyes, peering at the small figure perched in front of him. "Lord above," she called. "You gone and stole somebody's child off a church step, Colter Hayes?" Lark's shoulders tensed again. Found her out on the north line, Colter said as he swung down. He lifted Lark from the saddle, feeling each bony rib under his hands. Her ma's passed. Nettie's face softened, lines around her mouth deepening. "Oh, honey," she murmured, stepping closer. "Well, ain't that just like the world, handing its hardest blows to the smallest backs?" Lark edged behind Colter's leg. "This here is Lark Riley," Colter said. "Lark, this is Nettie Ward. She keeps this place from falling apart when I forget to." "I do more than that, and you know it," Nettie sniffed, but there was a catch in her voice. She crouched, careful not to crowd the girl. "I'm real sorry about your mama, sugar. You must be feeling like somebody pulled the ground out from under your feet." Lark stared at her, eyes shiny but stubborn. "We're just here till, she faltered. "Till we sort things out," Colter supplied. "We ain't charity," Lark added quickly. "Well, that's a relief," Nettie said, "because I don't much like charity cases. I like helpers. You know how to peel potatoes?" Lark blinked. "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're hired," Nettie said briskly, standing. "Kitchen's this way. We'll see about getting you washed up and fed before you fall over." Lark glanced at Colter. "Go on," he said. "Nettie makes biscuits that'll make you forget your own name." "My name's Lark," she said, stubborn. "Then she'll make you forget everything else." A tiny spark lit in her eyes, almost like amusement. She followed Nettie up the porch steps. Colter watched them go, something heavy and unfamiliar settling in his chest. "You done it now," he thought. "You brought a child into this house." Last time he'd thought about children in these rooms, Claire had still been alive. Her laughter had still bounced off the walls. Her hands still on his shoulders at night, warm, solid. Their child had never drawn a first breath. Claire hadn't drawn many after that. He pushed the memory away like he always did, but it clung, the edges frayed from overuse. "Boss," a voice called from the barn. Reuben Morales, his foreman, strode out, wiping sweat and sawdust from his brow. "Fence line all right?" "North section's fine," Colter said. "Soddy out there's not. Woman died. Left a girl." Reuben's dark eyes narrowed. "That her?" He jerked his chin toward the doorway, where Lark hovered like a stray cat, choosing whether to bolt. "That's her," Colter said. "You planning on keeping her?" "Planning on making sure she doesn't starve," Colter said. "Preacher in town'll have opinions. So will Sheriff Bell. I'll ride in tomorrow. Let him know what's what." Reuben grunted. "You sure about bringing county eyes out here, patron?" "I ain't sneaking a child onto my place like contraband," Colter said. "Last thing I need is word getting around I stole an orphan." "Last thing you need is word getting around you got one at all," Reuben muttered. "Men like Sloan hear that, they'll come sniffing." Ephraim Sloan. The name slid through Colter's mind like oil. "He already has his claws in half this county," Reuben went on. "He'd love to get hold of somebody else with no kin." Colter's jaw tightened. "I won't let him. You didn't let him raise share on McCready's herd neither," Reuben said. "Didn't stop him from doing it. This is different." Colter's hand curled unconsciously, as if finding the weight of a gun. "McCready is a grown man who made bad deals. This is a child." Reuben looked at him for a long minute, then nodded once. "Then we better be ready," he said. "If Sloan comes, he won't come alone." Dinner that night was quieter than any Colter could remember. Nettie set a plate in front of Lark with 2 biscuits, a ladle of pinto beans, and a thick slice of ham. Lark stared at it like it might disappear if she reached for it too fast. "Go on," Nettie urged. "It's not a trick. You're not going to get whacked with a spoon for taking more than you should." "Ma said we take small portions," Lark murmured. "Said we don't know when the next is coming." "Well, you're under my roof now," Nettie said. "And under my roof, you eat until you're full, and then a little bit past that, 'cause you're half air and stubbornness." Lark's lips twitched. She picked up her fork and began to eat. At first she took tiny bites, testing, but hunger took over quick. In minutes, the plate was nearly clean, biscuit crumbs scattered like dust. Colter watched her from the head of the table, his own food mostly untouched. The way she held her fork, the way she hunched over the plate like someone might take it away. Every detail scraped at him. "You can have more," he said abruptly. She froze. Ma said not to be greedy. "A second helping after a day like you've had ain't greedy," he said. "It's survival." Nettie chuckled. "Hear that, Colter?" She said, "You remember that next time I catch you picking at your supper." "I remember you like to fuss," he replied. "And you need fussing," she shot back. Lark's eyes flicked between them, taking in the easy rhythm of the exchange as if it were something foreign. Slowly, she held out her plate. "Please," she whispered. Nettie piled another biscuit and more beans onto her dish. Lark ate them just as fast as the first round. When she finally slumped back in her chair, belly full, her eyelids drooped. "We've got a spare room at the end of the hall," Nettie said gently. "Bed's a little softer than you might be used to." Lark's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "I sleep by the door," she said. "Not here you don't," Nettie said. "Here, the door sleeps by you." Lark frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "She means I'll keep watch," Colter said quietly. "You don't have to guard nobody tonight." Her gaze dropped to her empty plate. "Ma said it ain't safe to sleep all the way out here." "Your ma was right," Colter said. "Which is why I'll be sitting up with a rifle across my knees and 2 good men in bunkhouse within shouting distance." Reuben, sitting at the far corner of the table, lifted his fork. 3 good men, he said. Lark looked at each of them in turn. Caution warred with exhaustion. Finally, she nodded. "You can sit outside my door," she said. "If you fall asleep, I'll know." "Deal," Colter said. That night, Hayes Ridge felt different. Colter sat with his back against the wall, outside the little room at the end of the hall, Winchester across his knees, listening to the sounds of the house settling. Nettie's soft humming drifted from her room. Somewhere outside, a horse stamped and snorted in its sleep. From inside the room, Lark's breathing came in small, uneven pulls. Every so often it would hitch, like she was fighting off a sob even in sleep. He shifted, the floorboards creaking beneath his weight. His legs prickled with pins and needles, but he didn't move. "You're a damn fool," he told himself. Taking in an orphan was trouble. Everybody knew it. Children brought questions, brought talk, brought the past clawing out of whatever shallow grave you tried to stuff it into. He didn't want to remember the way Claire had looked the last time he'd seen her alive, sweat-soaked and pale, hands clutching the bedsheet as the midwife shouted for more hot water. He didn't want to remember the silence that had followed her last cry. He rubbed a hand over his face, rough stubble scraping his palm. The house had felt empty ever since. Men came and went, the bunkhouse full in spring and fall, but the main room stayed quiet. Too quiet. Now there was a small presence at the end of the hall, a breathing reminder that the world hadn't stopped moving when Claire's heart had. In the early hours, just as the sky outside began to pale, the door creaked open a crack. Lark's face appeared, eyes wide and dark. "You still there?" she whispered. "Told you I would be," he said. She peered down the hall, as if expecting some monster to be creeping toward them. "I heard coyotes," she said. "They're outside the fence," he replied. "They're more scared of us than we are of them." She snorted softly. "I doubt that." He almost smiled. "Go on back to bed," he said. "It'll be morning soon enough." She hesitated. If I have a bad dream," she said, "can I?" The question tangled on her tongue. "You can knock," he said, "and I'll answer." She nodded once, fast, and shut the door again. He stayed until dawn painted the ridge in pale light, until the smells of coffee and frying bacon floated down the hall. Only then did he push himself to his feet, knees protesting. Today, he thought, he'd ride into Copper Bend. Today, the rest of the world would find out about Lark Riley. Copper Bend wasn't much to look at. A crooked row of buildings straddling the main street, a church with peeling paint at one end, a saloon with swinging batwing doors at the other, and a handful of houses scattered in between, like somebody had tossed them from a giant S-hand. It was, however, where the law lived. As Colter rode into town with Lark in front of him again, conversations along the boardwalks faltered. Men in sweat-stained shirts and women in faded dresses turned to stare. Children paused in their games, marbles clutched in dirty fists. "They're staring," Lark muttered. "They ain't used to seeing me with company," Colter said. "Why not?" "I usually prefer cattle." He thought for a second. "They complain less." Her shoulders loosened by a hair. He reined in outside the sheriff's office. The sign above the door read Amos Bell, Sheriff, in letters that had been repainted twice this year alone. "You remember what I said?" Colter asked quietly. "Don't talk unless Sheriff talks to me first," Lark recited. "Let you do the arguing." "That's right. But if they try to take me away, then you yell," he said. "Loud as you can." Her mouth pressed into a thin line. She nodded. He swung down, helped her off the horse, and led her inside. The office smelled of coffee and paper and old wood. A big desk sat under the window, stacked with wanted posters and ledgers. Behind it, Sheriff Amos Bell, a broad-shouldered man with a graying beard and tired eyes, looked up. "Colter," he said. "Thought it'd be another week before I saw you." "Change of plans," Colter said. He moved aside so Amos could see Lark. The sheriff's expression shifted, lines deepening. "Well now," he murmured. "Who's this?" "Lark Riley," Colter said. "Found her on the North Line yesterday." Her May passed. Amos's brow furrowed. "Hannah Riley?" "Hannah May," Lark whispered. Amos's gaze softened. "I knew your ma," he said quietly. "She came through town a couple times, looking for work. Hard woman, hard life." "I'm sorry, girl." Lark stared at the floor. "She was out there alone?" Amos asked. "Far as I could tell," Colter said. "No sign of a man. No sign of a neighbor either." The sheriff sighed, rubbing a hand over his beard. "Damn," he muttered. "I told her that place was too far out. She said it was all she could afford." "She mentioned anyone else who might have a claim on the girl?" Colter asked. "Not to me," Amos said. "Figure that's why you're here." "I brought her back to Hayes Ridge," Colter said. "She can stay there." Amos's gaze sharpened. "You offering to take her in permanent like?" Colter shifted. "I'm offering to make sure she's fed and has a roof over her head," he said. "If the county wants to call that permanent, we can talk." "You know it ain't that simple," Amos said. "There's law about these things. Law that says we ship her off on an orphan train back east to get worked half to death in some factory?" Colter shot back. "Or law that says she goes to a family in town who can barely feed the mouths they've already got?" Amos winced. "You know I'm not fond of those trains either." "But there's rules." "Then bend them," Colter said. "You're the sheriff." "I uphold them," Amos corrected. "I don't write 'em." The door behind them swung open. Boots clacked on the floorboards. "Sheriff Bell," a smooth voice drawled. "I heard we had business to discuss." Colter didn't have to turn to know who it was. Ephraim Sloan moved like a man who thought the world belonged to him, and he merely allowed other folks permission to walk on it. His suit was dark and well cut, his boots polished, his hair slicked back from a high forehead. He carried a silver-tipped cane he didn't need. "Sloan," Amos said warily, "what are you doing here?" "I came as soon as I received word," Sloan said. His dark eyes flicked to Lark, and a smile slid across his face like oil. Lark edged closer to Colter. Word about what? Colter asked. About the unfortunate passing of Miss Hannah Riley, Sloane said. May God rest her soul. The way he said it made it clear he didn't care whether God did or not. How'd you hear about that already? Amos demanded. I make it my business to keep track of my investments, Sheriff, Sloane said mildly. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Miss Riley was in debt to me. Quite a lot of debt, in fact. Had she lived longer, I'm confident she would have repaid it. Alas, he spread his hands. Life is cruel. Colter's jaw tightened. What kind of debt? Seed, tools, a mule, if I recall correctly, Sloane said. All provided on credit, at generous terms. Generous, Amos snorted. Sloane ignored him. Unfortunately, she passed before the debt was repaid. That leaves certain obligations. He unfolded the paper and laid it on the desk. Amos picked it up, squinting. This is a contract, the sheriff said slowly. Indeed, Sloane said. Signed by Hannah Riley herself. Witnessed in this very town. It states that in the event of her passing, before the debt is repaid, any property she possesses, including livestock, tools, and, he paused delicately, dependents may be claimed by me as partial settlement. Colter saw red. You can't own a child, he said, voice low. Sloane gave him a pitying look. I don't propose to own her, Mr. Hayes. I propose to take responsibility for her. Provide food, shelter, employment appropriate to her age and abilities. You mean work her like a mule until she drops, Colter said. Now, Sloane chided. Let's not indulge in ugly speculation. I am a businessman. I simply seek what is owed. You think a girl is owed? Colter growled. Sloane's gaze slid back to Lark. I think value comes in many forms, he said softly. She's young, strong enough, trainable. Lark pressed herself against Colter's side. Her small hand found his sleeve and clung. Sheriff, Sloane said, turning back to Amos, as the lawman here, I'm sure you can see the fairness. The contract is valid. The woman is dead. The girl is all that remains. Amos looked like he wanted to spit. I saw Hannah sign something at your office, he said slowly. She told me she didn't have much choice. Said it was either take your deal or go hungry. And I fed her, Sloane said. I provided. You bled her. Amos shot back. Sloane's smile thinned. Be that as it may, the law is the law. Law also gives the county say over orphans, Amos said. Judge back in Abilene ruled on that last year. Minors with no kin close by fall under county wardship, and the county can assign guardianship to a responsible adult, Sloane said. Which I am. So am I, Colter cut in. Both men turned to look at him. You don't want a child, Sloane said with a little laugh. I didn't go looking for one, Colter said, but I found her. Or she found me. Either way, I ain't handing her over to you. Lark's fingers tightened on his sleeve. This isn't about what you want, Sloane said. It's about obligations and legal standing. You have no claim here. He's got more claim than you, Amos snapped. He's been feeding her since yesterday. A day's worth of beans, Sloane murmured. How noble. Colter took a slow breath. Sheriff, he said, keeping his voice level. What needs doing to make this right by the law? Amos rubbed his temples. We'd need the judge to sign off on any permanent guardianship, he said. That means papers, a hearing, testimony from folks in town. How long? Week, maybe more, Amos said. Telegraph to Abilene. Wait on a circuit judge coming through. In the meantime, Sloane began. In the meantime, Amos cut in, the girl stays where she is. With Hayes, court like stability. Sloane's smile vanished entirely. You overstep, Sheriff, he said softly. Maybe, Amos said. But until I hear otherwise from a judge, she's safer with Colter than with you. Lark let out a breath she'd been holding. Colter felt her whole body sag against him. "You're making an enemy you don't need, Belle," Sloane warned. "And you, Hayes? Wouldn't be the first," Colter said. Sloane's eyes turned cold and flat. "Very well," he said. "Enjoy your week. We'll let the law decide which of us is the more suitable guardian." He picked up his cane, tipped his hat with chilly politeness, and left. The door shut behind him with a thud. Amos blew out a breath. "You sure you want this fight, Colter?" he asked. "I already got it," Colter said. "Question is what I do with it." "Sloane doesn't like to lose," Amos warned. "He'll come at you from every side." "Let him try," Colter said. He glanced down at Lark. Her eyes were enormous, fixed on the door Sloane had just walked through. "He's not taking you," Colter said quietly. She swallowed. "He came to our place," she whispered. "Before Ma. Before." He yelled at her. "Said she was lazy and stupid. Said he'd take me if she didn't pay." Colter's throat burned. "He ain't taking you," he repeated. She searched his face like she wanted to believe him, but didn't know how. "Go on back to Hayes Ridge," Amos said, rubbing his jaw. "Keep her close. I'll start the papers. See if I can get the judge to hustle himself down here faster." "Appreciate it," Colter said. "Don't thank me yet," Amos muttered. "Sloane's got long fingers." The ride back to Hayes Ridge felt different from the ride into town. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it wasn't in one-word answers. "Enough to keep me up at night," he said. "Ma said rich folks count their cows when they can't sleep," she said. "I ain't rich," he replied. "You have a house and meat and a lady who makes biscuits," Lark said. "You're richer than us." "You're part of the us now," he said before he could stop himself. She went very still. "Just till the judge comes," she said. "Just till the judge comes," he agreed. He didn't add what he was thinking, that judges could be argued with, papers appealed, decisions fought. He'd faced stampedes in blizzards. He could face a man in a black coat with a pen. When they rode into the yard, Nettie came out onto the porch, wiping her hands as always. "Well?" she called. "What did the law say about our visitor?" "Law's thinking about it," Colter said. "In the meantime, she stays." "Good," Nettie said. She turned to Lark. "You hear that, sugar? You're stuck with us a while longer." Lark blinked. "I can help," she said quickly. "I can feed the chickens, or scrub things. Ma made me scrub things a lot." "We'll find you proper jobs," Nettie said. "We're not running a workhouse." "I don't mind work," Lark said. As the day wore on, Lark shadowed Nettie through the house, learning where the flour was kept, how to stack wood by the stove, which boards squeaked if you stepped wrong. "You ever milk a cow?" he asked. She nodded. "Ma taught me. Then you can help with Daisy in the morning," he said. "She likes gentle hands." He saw a flicker of something in Lark's eyes at that anticipation, maybe, or the faintest hint of pride. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, Colter walked the perimeter fence. Habit more than anything. After a threat like Sloane's, the habit felt urgent. Halfway down the east line, he found it a section of fence where the top rail had been cut clean through. Not broken by cattle. Sawn. The hairs on the back of his neck rose. This was no accident. Somebody had come onto his land with a saw and a purpose. Coyotes could have slipped through, sure. So could a man. On the way back to the house, he spotted something on the porch steps, a loop of rope, coiled neatly. It wasn't big, about the size to slip over a child's head. A chill crawled up his spine. He picked it up, tested the knot. Simple slip knot. Efficient. "Boss?" Reuben called from the barn. "Find someone cutting fence on the east line," he asked, "and I'll give you a month's wages extra." Colter opened his hand, just enough for Reuben to see the loop. The foreman's dark eyes went flat and dangerous. "I'll start watching nights," Reuben said. "Me too," Colter said. He didn't throw the rope away. He hung it on a nail inside the barn, where he could see it every time he went in. Reminder, he thought. This is what we're up against. 3 days passed. In that time, Lark became a small, fierce presence in the routines of Hayes Ridge. She rose early, often before Nettie, and padded into the kitchen to help with coffee and biscuits. She learned which chickens were mean and which could be bribed with grain. She surprised Reuben by calmly sliding a milk bucket under Daisy and getting a full pail without a single kick. Girls got hands like a whisper, Reuben marveled. She didn't talk much about her mother. When Nettie gently asked, Lark would shut down, eyes going blank. But sometimes, in the quiet between chores, she'd let slip little pieces. "Ma liked to sing," she said once, while shelling peas. "But only when she thought I was asleep. Another time, Ma said someday we'd go somewhere with trees. Tall ones. She said there's a place where water comes out of the ground all by itself. Spring." Colter thought. Rivers. Places beyond this hard, dry county. He listened. He stored the details away, like extra feed in a lean winter. At night, he still sat outside her door. He pretended it was only for a few minutes, until he was sure she'd settled, but the minutes always stretched until dawn. On the third night, the door cracked open again. "You asleep?" Lark whispered. "Does it look like it?" he muttered. She hesitated. "Can I sit with you a minute?" He shifted aside. "Floor's hard," he warned. "I don't mind hard," she said. She sat next to him, legs pulled up, chin on her knees. They listened to the night sounds together. "You scared of anything?" she asked suddenly. "Plenty," he said. "Like what?" He thought of losing Claire. Of the empty space inside his chest, where a life with her had once been. Of the way Sloane's eyes had lingered on Lark. "Snakes," he said. "And men who think the world owes them something." She considered that. "Ma said men like that were born with holes in them," she said. "Nothing ever fills 'em up. She was a wise woman," he said again. Lark's head tipped against his arm, just for a second. "I miss her," she whispered. He swallowed. "I know. I don't want to go with him," she said. "A fancy man." "You're not going with him," Colter said. "You keep saying that," she murmured. "You better mean it," he did. On the morning of the fourth day, a dust trail appeared on the road from town. Colter was in the yard, checking the cinch on his saddle when he saw it. Reuben stepped out of the barn, squinting. "Riders," he said. "I see 'em," Colter replied. Within minutes, 3 figures resolved out of the Hayes Sheriff Amos Bell, in his worn brown coat on his chunky sorrel moray. Deputy Hank Miller, younger, and jumpier, on a restless gray. And between them, riding a glossy black gelding, Ephraim Sloane. Colter's jaw clenched. "Stay inside," he called toward the house. "Nettie, take Lark to the back room." The screen door banged. Nettie's voice floated out, firm and low. Lark's quick footsteps followed. Colter stepped off the porch and onto the packed dirt of the yard as the riders drew up. "Morning, Hayes," Amos said. He looked older than he had 4 days ago. There were new lines around his eyes. "We need to talk." "We talking here or in your office?" Colter asked. "Here," Amos said. Judge wired back sooner than I expected. Sloane's mouth curved. "Efficiency," he said. "A rare blessing." Colter ignored him. "And?" he asked Amos. The sheriff shifted in his saddle. "Judge says the contract stands," he said heavily. "Says debt's a debt, and Hannah signed of her own will. He's willing to hear arguments about guardianship, but until he can get here in person, he's issued a provisional order." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. "Says the girl is to be placed in temporary custody of the creditor." Sloane's smile widened. "No," Colter said. "Colter," Amos began. "No," he repeated. "This is the law," Sloane said smoothly. "You of all people should understand that." "Law doesn't mean right," Colter said. "Right doesn't put food on tables," Sloane replied. "Law does. Law, in this case, puts a child in chains," Colter snapped. "She will be cared for," Sloane said. "She will have work, purpose. Better than running wild on some ranch with a man who barely knows her name." "I know her name," Colter said. "Lark Riley." "And you've known it all of 4 days," Sloane said. "I've known her existence for months." "As a line in your ledger," Colter growled. Amos slid down from his horse, boots hitting the ground heavy. "Colter," he said quietly, "I don't like this any more than you do. But the judge's order is clear. If I don't enforce it, Sloane can go over my head. Bring the marshal." "Let him," Colter said. Amos's jaw clenched. "Then it's not just your hide," he said. "It's my badge, my job, maybe my freedom." Colter looked at him, at the lines carved by years of dusty roads and bad coffee and harder decisions. Amos wasn't the enemy here. He turned his gaze to Sloane. "You step foot in that house," he said softly, "and you're a dead man." Sloane's eyes glittered. "Is that a threat, Mr. Hayes?" "It's a fact," Colter said. Hank Miller's hand fluttered near his holster. "Sheriff," he muttered. Amos held up a hand. "Nobody's drawing on nobody," he said. "Not today." "Then you best come up with another plan," Colter said. "There is no other plan," Amos said, frustration bleeding into his tone. "If you refuse to comply, I'll have to arrest you." Lark's small face appeared at the window, eyes wide. Sloane followed Colter's gaze and smiled. "Lark," he called, voice honey-sweet. "Come now, child. Time to go." She vanished from the window. "You ain't talking to her," Colter said. Sloane's smile faded. "Amos," he said, "do your duty." The sheriff's shoulders sagged. "Colter," he said, "don't make me haul you into town in irons." "Then don't try to take her," Colter said. "I don't have a choice," Amos said. Colter did. He could feel it, heavy and solid at his hip. Choice in cold iron form. Slowly, deliberately, he laid his hand on his gun. Hank swore under his breath. Sloane's eyes narrowed. "You going to shoot the lawman, Hayes?" he asked softly. "In front of a witness and God?" "I ain't pointing this at Amos," Colter said. "Not unless he forces me." "You'd hang," Sloane said. "Maybe," Colter said. "But you'd fall first." Behind him, the screen door opened with a creak. He heard small feet on the porch boards. "Colter," Lark's voice quavered. He didn't turn. Couldn't. If he saw her, he wasn't sure what he'd do. "Go back inside," he said. "Stay with Nettie." "I'm not leaving you," she whispered. "You're not going anywhere," Sloane said, irritation cracking through his smooth tone. "Sheriff enough." Amos looked from Colter to Lark to Sloane. He opened his mouth, closed it again. His hand hovered near his own holster, fingers flexing. The air between them tightened, every line stretched to breaking. Colter's thumb slid over the worn edge of his gun's hammer. He'd been in standoffs before. On the trail, in border towns where men drank too much and words turned to bullets. He knew how fast it could happen. One flinch, one twitch, and the world exploded. "Last chance, Hayes," Sloane said softly. "Stand aside." Colter shifted his weight, boots digging into the dust. "No," he said. "You want her. You're going to have to go through me." He saw it then, the moment Hank's hand jerked, the moment Sloane's eyes flared, the moment Amos shouted something he couldn't quite catch. Colter's gun cleared leather. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story.